Underdog Researcher. This is a research recap. This is going to be dropped every day of this particular week up until my new video is released about the project MetaPath this weekend. And in conjunction with that, I thought it'd be a good idea that we go over the research. I have dropped a lot of information. So if it's your first time tuning in, thank you for coming. Now, the research today that I'll be doing is just going over a project called SwiftCoin. And I'm going to start from the very beginning and hit on the highlighted points that you need to know about. If you've never heard about this project before, then let's get started with that. Now, just so you know, I'll be referring to some of my notes so that I can keep track since this is a live stream and I'm going to be bringing this recap to you. Get your pens, take notes, mental or physical. Without further ado, let's get started. SwiftCoin. Originally this year, I brought you a project that hasn't been talked about much. At the time in which I brought this project, very few people were talking about the project Swift. Now, not so much. More people are starting to find out about this project. But what is it? SwiftCoin is a cross-border project with cryptocurrency and also fiat payments. Now, what does that mean? So if you think about digital currency, a lot of you have stopped using money for a very long time. So imagine that you have digital money, like in your bank account, on a credit card, or ever digital thing that you use. And you go to buy something, you swipe it at the grocery store, the credit card, or you scan or tap your phone, and boom, money is transferred. So that's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about digital currencies. Now, what does SwiftCoin do? It does four different things. So in this regard, SwiftCoin is a utility token that pays for transaction fees on the blockchain called Swift blockchain. Now, how does it work for you? Well, there's twofold. There's the consumer piece about what banks and financial institutions will use it for. And then there's the private piece for retail like us. So I'm going to be explaining more about the retail, but just remember, it's applicable also to the consumer banks and how they'll use it. They're just going to be transferring a lot more money, right? So what does it do? So it can transfer cryptocurrency to other cryptocurrencies. That's the first thing to do. So you can take, let's say you have Bitcoin, you can transfer it. Ethereum, you can transfer it. It has the ability to transfer different cryptocurrencies, which is a lot different than the old way where you could use a blockchain to only transfer one type of token. So Bitcoin can only transfer Bitcoin, or Ethereum can only transfer Ethereum, if you understand. So that is what it does differently. It allows you to be general purpose. You can transfer multiple different cryptocurrencies across different platforms or blockchains. Also, it can transfer between cryptocurrency and thing called fiat. Now, fiat, this thing that they call, is a fancy word for money. So you can take cryptocurrency and transfer it to fiat. Third, you can take fiat and transfer it into cryptocurrency. And lastly, you can take fiat, that's that regular money that you have in your wallet, and transfer it to other fiat. So just imagine if you think of things like Western Union, you think of MoneyGram, World Remit. These are platforms that people can access online or in person if you want to send money to people across the seas or to a friend domestically or family. That is what we're talking about here. So now that's the gist. So SwiftCoin, cross-border payments, in those four different areas I just mentioned. Now, what I found out through my research that SwiftCoin has an app. Now the application is on Android and also iOS, which is your Apple phones. Now, what was important about that? Well, there's a feature on that a lot of people just kind of peruse through and they didn't pay attention to, but it's very important. It's called red packets. Now, what is a red packet? Now, if you know in China, the color you see for New Year's and oftentimes you see as they're on their flag is the color red. That red is symbolic. It's very symbolic with the culture. Now, there's a story that I found out about red packets about on New Year's Day. How did they keep a demon away in Chinese culture? They would put a red packet or a gift underneath the pillow of these kids. And what it would do was it kept and warded off demons because the story says something about these coins would have these warriors. It's a long story. So check out my original video and you can get the full story. Now, red packets is symbolized in the SWFT application. So you can download the app on iOS or Android, and on it, there's a gift giving button called red packets or red envelopes, symbolizing that this Chinese gift giving for prosperity and value. So just imagine if you cash app someone money, that would be the thing. So if I say I'm gonna cash app you, well, that's the same in the Chinese culture. Red packets, it's the same as giving a gift with a red envelope. That is a good thing. So that's going to help people who are in the area, whether it's China or if you're using the United States or wherever you might use the application. That is what you have to look for. Now, this is also something you should know about. So in my first video, that you can watch it, it's on my channel. We also talked about how many projects are using SWFT. So this is what you should know. SWFT coin is the utility token. The blockchain, SWFT blockchain, has accessibility to hundreds of other cryptocurrencies. So imagine the Bitcoins, the Ethereums, the Polygons, you name it, most of them can transfer their unique token on the SWFT blockchain. And to do that, they need to have SWFT coin, the user or the financial institutions. That's one way of doing it. Now, if you think about it, it's like a centralized exchange. You know, imagine you go to a bank and you transfer money from an international bank. The more network that you have, the more broader network you have, if you're taking little tiny fees from each of those, that would be something valuable, right? That is what I want you to think about. So you have the value when you can grow your network and many people can use your network. So that's what SWFT blockchain does. Now, they currently have about 50 blockchains. So what's the difference? SWFT coin currencies, crypto digital currencies, hundreds. SWFT blockchain, that's if you're talking about the Bitcoin, if that's a blockchain, and Ethereum, the blockchain, they have 50 they have accessible to at the time in which I did the research, probably a lot more now. So that's what it does. So imagine that they are building a broad network, and each of these utilities that are used on the network get a small little fee, about 0.2 to 0.3%. Now that might not seem much, right? Who cares about 0.2 or 0.3%? But if you look at the record labels and the industry right now, they make big money with musicians. Musicians make pennies on the dollars and they're millionaires because of the fact that they sell millions of their songs, and the big record label gets the bulk of that. So this is a smart thing, right? Because if you think about it, you take a little bit of something and you get many people using your network, well, then you take little tiny fees, those fees add up. So that is the thing. They want to expand because the more people use their network, the broader the network, the more potential money they can make, both on a retail investor, but also the banking financial. And I want you to really pay attention. From what I'm seeing, is not the retail investor they're targeting. They're targeting companies, financial institutions. So this is more of a centralized thing. So you may not see the growth exponentially right up front. You're thinking the long game. Will more people use their network? They're in this right now, gaining and growing their network. So what else we got? Know KYC, know your customer. So if you notice over the last few years, Bitcoin and other digital currencies have been scrutinized by federal governments. And what they're looking at is they're looking at the fact that you have a accessibility, if you will, to digital currencies, and that can, for some people, be utilized for nefarious means such as money laundering and other negative things. So they started to push KYC, an acronym for Know Your Customer. So Swift Coin currently, at the time in which this research is done, has no KYC requirement, meaning you can transfer your digital currencies freely without the regulatory scrutiny that's currently in the market. That's a good plus for some people who may not have the technological know-how to utilize KYC and or know how to go through the process. So that open availability is the point of Swift. Let's keep going. What else did we talk about in that first video? BitTorrent. See, I bet y'all forgot about that. See, there was so much information packed into it, you forgot about BitTorrent. Now, BitTorrent is an oldie but goodie. It's about storage of information and transfer of things of value. BitTorrent is part of the Tron network, and they talked about what happened to them during the COVID-19 era and how they was able to sustain their market value, and they shouted out Swift Coin because of the fact that their network needed more broad for people to get into their network. They utilized Swift, and because they utilized Swift, it allowed them to be able to sustain their value, which gives you a really good shout out for how companies and institutions are using Swift to find value. All right. Now, HTX. In my first video, we talked about HTX. Now, HTX is a centralized exchange where you can buy digital currencies. Now, HTX is over in China, if my memory serves me correctly. Now, Justin Sun, who is a multi-billionaire, who is known for being a part of Tron, talked about in the near future, in 2024, 2025, moving forward, how he, being a person who also gives his advice to HCX, is going to get HTX to get back to the China focus. Now, just imagine that. That's an opportunity. You got to pay attention to that type of news. If Justin Sun, who is like Elon Musk, if you will, of our area in the United States, is given this advice, if that goes down in main China and they start to really push Swift, that is a opportunity that may transpire. So pay attention to news, not just in the United States, but news with HTX, which is one of the top exchanges that sells Swift coin, and people can purchase, which may drive price action. We looked at BitThumb, which is in South Korea. Now, this is very interesting. Now, it is interesting to me that it's in South Korea for a few reasons. One of the reasons it's interesting is because of the fact that South Korea next year is going to be applying for an IPO. Now, this is like Coinbase did in the United States. Now, what is the speculation with this? Why does it matter for Swift? Well, Coinbase, if you look at Coinbase in the United States, when they became public traded company, their price skyrocketed. Now, although there has been regulatory issues, which they also BitThumb will be faced with as well in South Korea, if this happens with BitThumb, you can see that the value of BitThumb may increase because it gives more accessibility to most people as a publicly traded company who in the stock market, which will possibly bring more attention to the currencies trading on it, which could enter into a particular situation where we can see some value and price action by people accessing and purchasing Swift on that exchange. Something to consider. Now, BitThumb is talked about and announced Web3. People say Web3 all the time, but we're talking about the metaverse. We're talking about digital land. When you hear Web3, we're talking about moving the internet. And so that is another way that Swift Coin is already a part of the conversation. If people invest into BitThumb, they may have accessibility to Swift Coin, therefore purchasing it, and retail investors may consider that something they consider as a very positive thing for Swift. Now, we also went into some hidden connections, and I gave you first time ever released information. Now, sure, the information was already out there, but no one ever put it together. See, it's just like someone saying, well, That's out there on a white paper or that's out there online. Sure, it is. But let me tell you something about intelligence. If you ever know anything about intelligence, it's the gathering of raw data. But raw data means nothing unless you can translate the meanings, the hidden meanings within the data. Is there something you can extrapolate? Imagine, for example, and I'm going to give you a quick example. If you're in an intelligence field and you're doing a surveillance on a criminal, and imagine, for example, you're in your car and you get your tint on the car and you roll down the windows and you blare your music and you draw attention to yourself and you have a big old sign that says, "I am watching you doing illegal things," and it's flashing on your car. How likely is it that that criminal will continue to have the same behavior and do the thing that you're trying to observe them doing? Not very likely, right? So we observe information, and a lot of times we observe it in a way that people will do what they're going to do, and then we interpret it what it means. Now, what's the point of my statement there? What I'm trying to say is, in intelligence, if the criminal didn't do what they were going to naturally do, you can't gather that data. That data means nothing. They drove to the store, they did nothing. They drank a Coke, that meant nothing. But if you put it in the context of they drove to the store, met with someone at 3 o'clock p.m., and they exchanged a bag, and then for a second, you saw money being placed into the bag, and they took that money and they had a handoff, and they gave them a white substance. Now, that's intelligence. You can surmise that likely what happened is some type of illegal transaction. That data has been turned into something of value versus them going to the store and them not keeping the same behavior. So what I have found out with the hidden connections is fidelity. Now, what did we learn about fidelity? So if you watch my first video, and I really encourage you to watch the first video, this is just a summary, but the details, the meat is in that first video of Swift coins you can find on my channel. But let's get to it. Fidelity. Fidelity had a rumor in 2023 that they was considering coming out with an ETF. And they was trying to buy a company and they wasn't sure if it was going to be Blackwater or who was going to get into this area. And at the time this intelligence came out, it hadn't happened yet. But what happened? Fidelity ended up making a move and getting a Bitcoin ETF that was made, and it made lots and lots of money. Now, you just can't make this just be making it. They had to create a means in which they could take money into it, process and this information from consumers. And they had an inventor who made this work for them, and they patented that. Now, what I've revealed that no one had put together is that Xing Shing. That name should ring loud, and you should learn it because they were the same inventor in 2018 before Fidelity made their patent, who made the Swift coin patented technology. And that was huge. They worked for Fidelity. They went to American school, and they also were instrumental. So if you think about that, why does that matter? Well, if Fidelity is going to get into the business of making money in the industry of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they wanted the best. And they got the best. They took the template from Swift coin inventor who spent years of their life dedicated to this very thing, and they made this happen. Now, does that mean that Swift coin is using the exact same patent as Fidelity? No, it don't. But it does mean is that the same brain that made the patent for Swift used the same concepts and principles, and they applied it. Now, you can go look that patent up, and you can look deep into that patent, which I have. Very interesting stuff, very high level, but that's important. Xing Shing was the inventor of both the Swift coin blockchain patent and Fidelity's patent. No one had reported that, but here on the Underdog Research Channel, I discovered that, found it, for my own research, and I gave it to you. And now you're a lot smarter about knowing that piece. that no one talked about. And I think that's important. If you're going to be into a project, you probably want to know as much information you can about it. For some of you, you might not care about that. Some people only care about technical analysis and price action from stock markets that people are trying to apply to a crypto market, which I don't know why it's not very applicable for the most time. But hey, you use what skill sets that you have. So you come to it with the skill sets you have, and you depend on the information that you do. What I refer to is research, and I like to see how these things work. So that's something I told you about. Now, what else did we learn from that as well? Well, we also learned about someone else at Fidelity named Catherine Young. Now, Catherine Young is over their China focused strategy. Now, why is that important? So instead of looking at technical analysis, which I personally, I'm telling you, if you notice, my videos very rarely even mention price action because it's not evergreen content. Do you know what evergreen content means? I just didn't know if you knew what this meant, so let me make sure you understand what it means. The difference between watching an Underdog Research channel video and watching someone else's content. So evergreen is something from marketing, meaning that the information you're receiving over time will change very little or won't change at all. For example, I have a black shirt on, so unless I dye this shirt a different color, then it will be a black shirt tomorrow and a black shirt the next day. See, it still absorbs the same amount of heat. It's still made out of the same material. So if I did a research video on this black shirt, then the research is valid tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, unless there's a significant change. If I rip the shirt, it may not be exactly the same. So I need to report that rip. That's the update. So oftentimes with my research videos, you notice that people don't say, hey, can you give me another update on it? Because the contents, the foundations of the technology that I'm discussing is not a conversation about whether it's going to moon or if it's going to go to zero. It's a conversation about the foundational information of the project. That's why you should only watch this channel if you don't want someone telling you when moon, when Lambo, or FUD. Because I will never tell you that, because that's not what you need to know. You need to understand the project so you, as a person who's interested in that technology, are informed enough to make your own decision. That's it. So if you're looking for me to say it's good or bad, it's not going to happen. If you're looking for me to tell you about a project and break it down in an easy, digestible manner, that's what I do best. That's what I'm trained to do. And that's what my years of experience in this area allows me to do very well. So I hope that you benefit from that. So let's get back to it. Catherine Young, she's on the China focus. Now, she's an expert, man, an expert man and woman, whoever's watching this, at China. She's one of the lead directors, head honchos at Fidelity, specifically focused on the ecosystem, the market of China. Why does it matter? Because SWFT Coin's CEO came from there, Rambolan. And a lot of their institutional core of SWFT Coin, although they're in the United States under a company called GooCoin, which I'll tell you about in my next recap video, they are based out of California. Their roots started in China, and their packets, like red packets and the things they're trying to do, is marketing to the Chinese people for a lot of reasons that I'll discuss in my next recap. Now, why is she important? She told you something. If you didn't know, this is going to be evergreen content. If you're looking at this project and you're thinking about it, then you can't think about the United States market. You can't think about how well it's doing with technical analysis today and tomorrow on Coinbase or CoinGecko or Crypto Market Cap or where Coin Market Cap, whatever you watch. You're making an error. That's good if you just want to feel good, but you can't predict the market. You have to look at the whole economy, because this project is across hundreds of blockchains, cryptocurrencies, and over 50 blockchains that are primarily based in different countries of origins. So in order to really understand how it moves, I got to understand that one company may take off and it's in India. The other company may take off and it's in China. or there might be 30% of the companies that Swift Coin has in those hundreds of companies are based in China. So one thing you might want to consider is this. Maybe, just maybe, you need to understand if someone was to take, and I might do this, I'm not sure, I don't have a lot of time, maybe somebody else will do this. If you were to list out every cryptocurrency project that they have on their website and it's up to date, and then you were to research the countries of origins and what main markets each of those hundreds of cryptocurrencies are in, you could have a statistical data analysis of where the bulk of those cryptocurrencies, what country they're in. And then if you know the country of the percentage, so let's say 40% of the tokens that Swift blockchain can transfer are in China, then you probably should consider looking at China's economy, because if it's 40% of 100 of cryptocurrencies in the portfolio of Swift, then over 1/3 of your total potential profit margin is dependent on the country. So that's why this up and down, you better stop paying attention to the daily technical analysis, because that doesn't tell you nothing. It just feels good. You got to know where the data is coming from and where the money's being transferred if you really are wanting to know the potential, because we're talking about things that hadn't happened and we're talking about the foundation level. So that's important. So Catherine Young said this. She said, if you're looking for a V-shaped, means it was up, it was down, and going back up. Economy in China, don't. China isn't looking to have an upward mobility, if you will, upward move in their economy until the fourth quarter of 2024 and going into 2025. So this video right now is still going to be evergreen until that happens. We're talking about 14 to 18 months of time span. So you watch this video today, no matter when it is, if it hadn't hit 2025 and above, then the video is still going to be valid regarding the economy of China, if that's something that is important to you. So that's huge. So if you're thinking about the price action, imagine this. Why would you want to get into the project if that's what you want to do in the beginning of the cycle where it starts to be up, when you're getting to higher levels? If you truly believe that there's going to be a higher push, why would you buy in high? It makes no sense to me. The obvious thing to do is to, if you look at the project, you like the technology, you want to take a chance on something, to get in it when no one else is talking about it. Get in it when everything seems bad, right? Get in it when it is red for months, because you're thinking, if Catherine Young is right from Fidelity, who has a lot more money than I do, who has a whole division who's focused with financial experts and accountants and economy experts, maybe she's a little bit smarter than me by myself with my little PC and phone trying to figure out today if it went up 5%, if it's mooning, or 20%. That's guessing. So she said, and I believe what she's saying because she's basing off her data that she has in her company, which is billions of dollars goes through their company, that 2024, the end of it into 2025, she's looking for the China focus. And since Swift has connections that are very, very closely tied to China, then I have to consider that a great deal of potential and speculation in that money will come next year. So I got into this project myself. I started looking at it in December. It was at 0.02. So that was like 20% of a penny. Today, on average, it's 0.06. That's 60% of a penny. It touched just a couple of days ago, 0.07, and it's even went higher than that. So no matter what, the people who heard about me talk about this in my community in January, who decided to get into it, already have gotten almost 300% addition to their money. So if they had $100, they got $300. If they had $3,000, they got $6,000. I mean, more than $6,000 actually. They're going close to $9,000. So I'm giving that not to say that this product is going to do well. I'm just saying that the value comes from understanding the market. So that's enough about that. Let me keep moving. So what else we talked about? We also talked about um, Catherine Young saying that the value in the China focus is companies picking a basket, a suite of well-run Chinese and now well-run Chinese companies to hedge their bets, if you will, for success and financial return. Now, I'm going to apply what she said. Now, she wasn't talking about Swift Coin. No, that's research. I am applying what she said about the economy to Swift, creating new ways of thinking. It could be totally wrong, or it could be spot on, but that's what I'm doing. If Swift Coin has over 50 blockchains and it has access to over hundreds, over 500 different cryptocurrencies, then that's a suite of companies, if you will, a suite of projects. And if they're well run, because you never know, these companies could be fraudster, not Swift. I'm saying that you don't know who owns McDonald's, and you don't know if they could embezzle tomorrow. Somebody I bet is out there embezzling from McDonald's, from Cracker Barrel, or wherever you go to. There's always people. People are the problem. People will always find ways to do bad things, and that's just the nature of humanity, right? So we can't promise that a project is going to do well because we can't anticipate the variable people. But what's constant is if the company does well, these companies that SwiftCoin has added into their network, then that increases the potential of when an economic rise happens in certain countries or industries that SwiftCoin will benefit from that. So that's what she said, and that's why I talked about in the first video. Now, if I look at that, there's a few more things, and we're going to close this out, right? So when you look at SwiftCoin, and I'm going to close it out with this, I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine that you are looking at the overarching view of a technology. We say the word project, but that's really kind of misleading because Swift Coin or Swift blockchain is a technology, but the company is called GooCoin, incorporated in California in the United States. Now, the company has a technology that they utilize called Swift Coin, Swift blockchain. That's different than Bitcoin, who has no company, who has no CEO, who has no extra regulations, if you will, that can make sure that it has success or failure. Swift Coin has GooCoin, the company, who the CEO is Ramble Lane. Now, why that is important? Ramble Lane is tied to that company. We found out, which I'll tell you in my future recaps about the EB5 investments. John Shin. Today, I won't go over that. So make sure you watch the video number 1 and then as we do the recaps, watch the other videos so you can know who these people are. Now, it is tied to this particular company, Swift Coin, Swift blockchain, with GooCoin. They're interlocked. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be bought out. It doesn't mean that other people won't find them interesting. In fact, you may be very interesting to other companies. Other companies will start using it. But what that means is they're one of the first movers in this space of cross-border payments with this space. Now, if this takes on, it's going to be a good thing. That's why it brings me to the final thing today. It's the API. Now, API. So Swift Coin, Swift blockchain has a API and has a bridgers. I'm going to explain those two things, and then we're done with this recap, and I hope that you enjoy the recap. Now, Swift has an API. So how does that work? All right. Imagine that you have someone who sings, and they sing very, very well. They sing so well that people want to pay them for them singing. Now, you can't sing. You can't hold a tune in the bottle or anything. You're horrible. So you have a big event coming up, someone very special. And there was a way that you could pay someone else, and when you open your mouth, you would sing as beautifully as your favorite artist. Now, wouldn't you do that, even if it's for a few hours? Now, that is what an API is giving a company or person utilization of someone else's technology. Well, SwiftCoin also primarily targets the commercial financial institutions. They allow other companies to utilize their technology. And by them doing that, it gives them a little bit of fees that SwiftCoin can collect, and you won't see them. And by them paying Swift for the utilization of technology, it increases their use, broadens their network. That's what an API is, using someone else's technology. But SwiftCoin also has Swift Bridgers. Now, what is that? So these 500 cryptocurrencies and these 50 different blockchains, they need a centralized place in which to do the swaps. That is called a bridge. It connects one thing to another thing. Swift Bridgers allows you to do a swap on that blockchain and allows you to connect these different cryptocurrencies. That is what these people and these companies are adding to the network of Swift blockchain. Now, again, as I said, Swift gets a little portion of fees. The problem with this centralized, decentralized strategy, some of these things you cannot see on the blockchain. So you won't see the growth. So you're looking for the price to rise based off of faulty thoughts that it's completely decentralized. But if you look at their plan with the things like their API and the use of their apps, some of these things are not going to be transferred. Red Packets, for example, if I send you money through Red Packets, there's a protocol within Swift. It don't cost you anything, but you use the network. So what's in it for Swift? Well, just like all things, they want to show people the power of their product so that when they start to get used to it, people build off of their product, the Swift blockchain, and then they're going to start charging more and more for the use of their services. The company should become interesting to other people, and that's the value. Now, this is not a competition between other people, other companies. This is them connecting the networks and making it work. So, folks, that's it. Watch video number 1. That's the first thing you do. If you want to join my channel and you want to start getting this type of information and you're tired of people telling you when Moon, when Lambo, and just telling you what you want to hear, then make sure you click on a link in the description of my video. It will be updated, and go back and check if you don't see it. And you can go to my Telegram. And then from there, I'll be releasing special private videos, but it's in my metaverse. And you will have to connect with me, get a metaverse ID, that's Web3, and I explain to you how to do it. And there'll be a link in the link of this video, and it'll show you how to set up your metaverse account. And that way, people who want to take the time to do this right here, you can do that, you know? And I just think it's important that we don't take enough time. We don't take enough time to see value. And I hope that you find value in the research. But if you don't, and you want someone to read you CoinMarketCap and a white paper, which I see is very popular and people get hundreds of views by just telling people what they want to hear, then, hey, I'm not for everybody. But for those who truly want to get into the knowledge and research that I can provide to you through my experience and time and training, then I welcome you to join. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you go back tonight because you're going to get left behind. Watch video number 1 for SwiftCoin. This is the recap. I hope that you have a good one. Until next time, this has been the Underdog Research Channel. Have a good night.